Hi, I'm back. Chini. This time I'll say safely that I'm on semi lockdown, but we've still got coronavirus battling it out there. Let me start this week's session with this mysterious young African American lady who got up one day and recited a um, disturbingly scary poem. I'll say that when you hear it, you'll know what I mean, about white privilege. I don't know what her name is, but I'm going to play her video now.
We learned your French. We learned your English, we learned your Spanish, we learned your Dutch, your Portuguese, your German. You learned our nothing, you called us stupid. That's white privilege. And I'm sure it probably hurts for you to hear those two words, kind of like gunshots and explosions from those commissioned to protect you with whisking past your ears. What is white privilege? It is the only 5 decades of legal acknowledgement expected to correct 400 years of white transgression. It is crack versus cocaine. Blacks receiving almost 20% longer sentences for the same exact offenses. Like, for instance, a black man without a record is less likely to get a job than a white felon, or maybe it's because we're lazy and we don't work hard enough. Like, what the fuck? 400 years in the same field literally is an incredible resume builder. It is Katrina answering the government's prayers of eugenics, Dick Cheney going fishing the next day, Condoleezza on a shopping spree, Bush in San Diego, but Kanye is the one you call crazy because, like, it only took the USA 2 days to get aid to Asia, but 5 for FEMA to get to Canal Street and Esplanade. It is the one black kid who beat the shit out of the odds, but only thanks to Sandra Bullock, Michelle Pfeiffer, and the White Shadow, so now we all can make it. It is the only time thousands of white people are cheering for the black kid to win is in the stadium. It is you looking at me crazy if I told you to go back to Europe, even though we didn't have a say. It is you all of a sudden having a problem with immigration, like this isn't even your nation. How the hell do you discover some shit that wasn't even missing to begin with? You Columbus our traditions. Had white girls twerking in high definition, multicolored hair and purple nails, but it was ghetto when we did it. Oh, I make you uncomfortable. Try a cramped slave ship. But wait. Slavery is over now. It's just called the prison system because, like, you're not racist because you don't use the N-word, but y'all use niggas every day. What is white privilege? It is the acceptance of bombs over Baghdad, but not over Boston. It is European history being taught as a major and African as an elective. It is learning about my people only 28 days like I'm not black every fucking second as every white boy. Want to fuck my brains out, not because I'm pretty, but because I'm pretty for a black girl. It is people thinking that Africa is one nation. It is the waving of the Confederate flag like you didn't lose the battle and then telling us to get over slavery. It is people saying that black people destroyed neighborhoods but forgetting that white people have destroyed continents. It is every time I bring up my plight, some white man has to tell me that I'm crazy but is kind enough to praise my English or say that we are all given the same opportunities, even though he has a family history of wealth and I don't even know my family history at all. Is the justification of police brutality. Like, what did that person do? I'm sure it doesn't hurt as much when the victim doesn't look like you. It is people thinking that affirmative action is an unfair advantage instead of keeping the qualified from being unfairly disadvantaged or throwing out a qualified applicant because their name's out too African American. Is Newports imported into black communities but black boys exported for weed as big plastic asses that are called fat when we naturally have them. It is an Australian woman whose new classic of rap music is everyone who hears this poem dismisses all this truth I just spit as reverse racism. That is white privilege. Thank you.
Wow, that was brilliant. If anyone could tell me her name, please, put it on the comments. I need to know. I really do. It's the clue I can think of is in a program called In the Now. I am honored to have Reginald Chiedu Ofodili on our lockdown program. He has a varied legal and artistic career. He is an actor par excellence, Having made several appearances in British theatre, he won the Warehouse Theatre International Playwright Competitions Award, as well as the BBC African Performance and World Students Drama Trust Award. He also had a major role as the Kanu uncle, alongside Chiwetel Ejiofor, Thandi Newton, amongst other modern talented Hollywood and Nollywood greats, in the movie Half a Yellow Sun, adapted from the novel by Ngozi Adichie. R.C. Ofodili, as he's called, writes plays, poetry, and long and short fiction. Thou Shalt Not, published by Africa Gender, is a perfect example of one of his beautifully written novels, superb in its command of English language as usual, with its penchant for accurate storytelling. The initial contrast of the larger-than-life characters instigates the mesmerizing effect of the book.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad, I'm honored.
Chiedu, welcome. It's so great to talk to you about your literary genius pertaining to this book in particular. Welcome. My first question. I love the characters in the story, Bassi and Odauzo, did I pronounce it right? And how their lives eventually intertwine. Tell us a bit more about them, starting with Bassi, the number one character.
In answer to your question, to your request for more information about the protagonists, Bassi and Odauzo, I'd say Bassi is guilt-stricken. He started life brilliant, brimful of promise. He notched up academic feats. However, when he'd embarked on his dream professional training, recall of the past began to haunt him. He sank into self-hate, and he never wriggled free of his guilt. Odauzo had been privileged and protected, if not always pampered. Then events in her young life devastated her. She later began to bemoan her actions and omissions in a certain unforgettable episode of her life. Guilt and regret were factors that bound her to Bassi, and the two were ultimately impelled into waters they couldn't swim.
Okay. Do you agree with the laws on celibacy in the church and some of its strict rules, which have throughout history proved almost impossible to comply with by priests, clerics, monks, and other religious practitioners?
In answer to the question whether I approve of celibacy or the vow of celibacy of Catholic priests, I hesitate to answer that for two reasons. Firstly, I feel I'm not sufficiently instructed in Catholic doctrine to pronounce upon that hallowed, cardinal tenet of Catholic priesthood. Secondly, I feel I lack the spiritual stature to discuss it. However, I can be discursive on the peripheral, rather. I read that Mahatma Gandhi, at some stage in his struggle for India's independence, espoused celibacy. Blessed Michael Iwene-Tanse, he's been canonized, I understand, reportedly said, if you're to be a Christian at all, you might as well live entirely for God. I find that many outstanding men through the centuries not only spiritual or national leaders, but inventors, writers, musicians, artists, lived lives that seemed to reflect voluntary celibacy. A name that comes to mind is Nikola Tesla, called in the last century the man who invented everything. It said the Western civilization we have today wouldn't exist but for him, and he had no known or lasting romantic attachments, and quite a number of other men were like that in history. I think the Wright brothers, inventors of the aeroplane, were like that, Isaac Newton, Beethoven, and so on. I have a feeling that these exceptional men espoused celibacy because they drew power from it. They could focus and achieve their staggering feat because they freed themselves from the proclivities of much of humanity. I feel too that some of these men may have procured outlets for their bodily urges occasionally, but it is probable that for most of their lives they were celibate. If someone takes the vow of celibacy and breaks it sometimes, I can understand that, because however spirit-filled one is, that spirit is encased in flesh.
The twist at the end of the tale, followed by a cliffhanger, shows signs of a blockbuster movie. Or would you prefer a play on Broadway or Shaftesbury Avenue? Did you intend this to happen in the future?
You asked if I'd like a blockbuster movie to be made of Thou Shalt Not, or stage productions, Shaftesbury Avenue, Broadway. I'd be glad for a movie to be made of it. It would be a period movie, as it's set in the 1920s, approximately a century ago. Stage productions would be welcome, but I feel the big screen would do it the greater justice.
The book teems with amazing instances of alliteration. It is obviously poet's prose. Could you say something about it, Chiedu?
About my penchant for alliteration and assonance, I must add, I see it as a challenge and a treat to write those sentences, those paragraphs. When Bassi sails to England, past Freetown, Sierra Leone, it goes, the buoyant boat bobbed beyond the bubbly bay of Freetown, bound for the Canaries. Outrageous, isn't it? And about some man who was staunchly pro-colonialist, that was in the 1920s, it goes, he had a propensity provoking to proponents of African political placation. And about Bassi resolving the disputes of members of his congregation, peacemaking procured peeks into polemics, piquant privacies. Utterly preposterous. I enjoy it.
If this our country were not so educationally challenged, we would be seriously celebrating you, R.C. Ofodile, as an icon of English literature in schools throughout the Federation and even the African continent and the world, alongside the likes of Chinua Achebe and your favorite writer, Wole Soyinka. Finally, Chiedu, can you please tell the book lovers watching where this absolute classic of a novel can be found?
Where the book can be found, you asked? It should be available at Salamander Bookshop in Wuse, Abuja, probably at the City Plaza Bookshop as well, and other retail outlets.
Please, question 4.5, sorry. Please, could you read an excerpt from your book?
Yes, I'd gladly oblige you by reading some sentences from the book, Thou Shalt Not. It was late afternoon. Bassey sat in the cool shade of a tree outside the parsonage, his art equipment before him. Blank canvas or drawing paper roused him to mingled elation and apprehension. Glancing at the bottles of watercolor before him, Bassey's gaze gradually rested on his favorite hue, red. He had sometimes visualized the perfect red. It would be untamed, sublime, unimpeachably pure, demure, redolent of superhuman strength, humorous, uproarious. Bassey's dream red would be rich, without a tint of pink or hint of peach. That red was radiant, riveting, rapturous, restorative, regal. Thank you for having me.
Another top 10 countdown list that piqued my interest is the top 10 best-selling authors in the world, the richest top 10 best-selling authors in the world, listed by way of earnings from book sales. If there was more time, actually, I would have opted for the top 20. But because there's a Nigerian in the top 20, that's the only reason why. And guess who that Nigerian is? Guess. None other than Bishop David Oyedepo, who came in at number 12 with $150 million worth of sales for his writings and his books. One of Nigeria's richest pastors. Now we know where he really got most of his money from. Now, sure. Number 10 is Jeffrey Archer from the UK. His net worth is 195 million US dollars. Number 9 is John Grisham from the USA. His net worth is 220 million US dollars. Number 8 is Nigel Blackwell from the UK. His net worth is 292.5 million US dollars. Number 7 is Barbara Taylor Bradford. Oh, I love her books. From the UK as well. Her net worth is $300 million. Number 6 is Danielle Steele, also a good writer. From the USA again. Her net worth is 310 million US dollars. And then number 5 is Nora Roberts from the UK, whose net worth is $390 million worth of book sales. Number 4 is Stephen King from the USA. His net worth stands at $400 million. Number 3 is James Patterson, whose net worth is $560 million. Number 2, you shouldn't be surprised, is J.K. Rowling. I think J stands for Joanne. K. Rowling from the UK. Her net worth is $1 billion US. One of the highest yet. But there's a number 1. And not many of us have heard of her. It's a French lady this time, Elizabeth Badinter from France. Her net worth is 1.3 billion US dollars. Out of those, guess who my favorite is? John Grisham. I'm a John Grisham fan through and through. Anyway, we're now going to present for you a poem from the diaspora by Izogie Ohobamo.
Global mass consumption on a scale never in modern history seen. So much excess waste and really so much poverty. Those people we get and those we no get. When really there's so much to go around. Items get discarded because it's not quite straight or perfectly round. Waste and greed are the same thing. These two we have found. Waste on the farms, items not perfectly shaped, you see. Waste in the shops, thrown out after their sell-by dates. Good grief. Food expiration date is a really big pain with perfectly good food and cash. Na deception and they scam your head though. Waste in the kitchen, you will put too much for your plate. These children once rejected pots of yogurt 5 days out of date. It took all we had to convince them it was still okay to eat. Test it and see, we said, which they reluctantly but surely did. Realization unfolded and readily they lifted each yogurt lid. With this example, we really hope you get it. Burn or bury plastics, generating gases captured for electric. Turn waste into profits, jobs strong, communities created. But here we are planning to inhabit Mars for the future, when we have not looked after this earth adequately. Waste not, my friend, we go lead to wanting not, you see. Waste not, my friend, will lead to wanting not, you see.
Now for some poetry reading. I'm going back to my book, which has been released now. It's in the shops, Like Father, Like Daughter. I'm going to read a poem about the Dance of Death. Inadvertently, I used a picture of Chadwick Boseman to portray that. So this is a tribute to him. It's called The Dance of Death by Emmanuel Iwenofo. It was a weird dance, the dance of death. Drums were beating and heads were nodding. It was an eerie song, the song of death. Tongues were wagging and muscles were twitching. Legs were starting, arms were rising. Eyes were peering and veins were flushing. Fronds of palms waved, held by heroic hands. Spears were leveled in mock encounter. The dance was on, the tempo increased. The dirge was stunning, the eyes were rolling. Heroes greeted heroes. Novices cleaned the stage. Coins tossed in the air as the world stood still. To belong, to possess. Something in your veins, something that was. The dance of old, the dance of man. Yep, that was it, the dance of death. That's it for now. Until next time, I hope you like it. And, subscribe to the show. We're improving every day. It's still work in progress and all that. But don't forget to subscribe and support the cause. For us authors, readers, and books in general in Nigeria. African Writers Unite. Creative Africa. Bye-bye.